Tonight we're going to learn the dinim of walking with a cane on Shabbos, crutches, Rahman al-Flan, and wheelchairs. The Maisa, Nishvakin Kedach, but it is Negel Maisa, and the halachis in these inyanim are very chumradik. Melachol Adayas, they're very l'chumra. But let's take a look to see what are the yisodas of the din. So Lamaisa.
Now they have electric ones. People drive it. I mean, on Yontif, I don't know about Shabbos. I saw in Israel.
It was like specially made.
Well, that's the problem. The battery ones maybe is less than a show.
I saw it driving it.
Right, there's certain maybe ones that are made by certain mechonis and special hachshedim.
Yeah, no, I'm sure it was that, but I mean, I actually saw it. I didn't hear about it.
Let's take a look. Sif Yud Gimel V'Altei B'Shulchan Aruch. Kiteya B'Shtei Raglav Samar Rahman al-Flan had both of his feet amputated. U'Mahalich al Archub. It's a Mishnah. U'Mahalich al Archubaisov.
Think about it.
Val Oirech Shoikev. He's walking on his knees, and the length of his thighs. That's how he's carrying himself. Now, he wants to have like a pair of shoes. He doesn't want to be hurt. He makes those supports of leather, of wood, the length of his thighs. Mutter latzas behem. It's mutter for him to go out with them on Shabbos. Lefi shehein tachshit shaloi, because they're his tachshit. It's hard to understand the term tachshit over here. It would make more sense the word malbush. There's malbush.
Malbush also is hard to understand.
For
Not
him,
wearing them.
this is like his shoe. This is like for him. This is his shoe. He can't walk without this. He can't get around without this. Yeah. Sometimes it's not clear where we interchange the terminology malbush tachshit, but either way, it's mutter. Avol kiteya.
Oh yeah, okay. I just want to say
Yeah.
it's someone that can't. Rahman son, if this is helping him get out, so he's proud of it. In other words, it's like
Tachshit.
he's proud that he's not confined. He's not an invalid.
Yeah. Another thing is tachshit has a much wider interpretation. A lot of tachshitim are jewelry, but tachshitim also means use the term to refuah, yanim for refuah. I mean, this is not for refuah, but it's to help him to go.
It's also helping his self-esteem.
In Hebrew, if somebody
You
is a
say
bandit,
tachshit is something that helps his self-esteem. Tachshit is an adornment.
The problem,
In
we start
English,
getting
is that right?
psychological.
Adornment. It's adorning him. It's adorning me. How do you type adornment?
Just like malbush.
Yeah. How do you type an
You know what I
adornment?
mean? In Hilchos Shabbos, a certain category.
Oh, he knows.
Todarabah.
What does an adornment mean?
But back to Shabbos.
Something that softens you up a little bit.
There you go. So it's like an adornment. It's something that's enhancing his. It's enhancing his presentation.
Right. Now, Maisa is such
That's what tachshit means. It's not necessarily a jewel. It's anything which is enhancing his malus.
you know, in Israel, if the mother
that
has
wrong?
a son bandit, they say, איזה תכשיט יש לה? Yeah. They have such a sentence.
Exactly.
איזה תכשיט יש לה?
Not in Israel. My father used to say, well,
Oh yeah? So you have a tachshit?
it's a derogatory term.
Not always.
His son, a richtig attached.
Right. So he's saying the exact same thing. He's saying the same thing.
Saginor, but saginor.
Saginah, yeah.
It's like saying what's the lashon there? Don't thank me. I haven't done anything bad to you yet today, or something. What's the right? Or there's no good deed goes unpunished. So that's making it into a litzon. Not litzon. It's like
right. It's a different meaning. The meaning
exactly.
there is like you said, to enhance
an adornment. It adorns him.
or maybe it's something that we learned that it's okay to carry it, even though it's not a malbush. You know, I mean, I'm being very.
Right.
I don't know. I don't know enough to even say anything about it.
But that may be where Cain comes in. Maybe a cane could be also a tachshit.
No, okay, definitely.
Yeah, is it tachshit?
I don't know. People used to walk.
He's carrying it. Daddy's mom is carrying a prosthetic limb. It's not carrying it. Is he carrying a prosthetic?
A cane is a whole different thing. We're talking now about
Right.
Yeah. What happens if you have an amputee it's even a much worse situation? He can't even walk on his thighs. But he can make from a small chair. He sits on it and he walks. And he has for his hands little seats, little pieces that he pushes on the floor with. Here.
It's like a sitting crutch.
He uses a little chair and he has on his hand something which helps him where he can use it to push supports on the ground. Push himself forward. Then he goes and sits back down. The chair is tied to him from the back. He has for the like where the spot where his knees would be, he put over there pieces of either wood or leather. When he bends down on his hands, a little bit he leans on his feet. His main way of walking is he pushes himself with his hands, pushes himself all up and moves forward with the hands. But he has his feet sometimes a little bit uses to support himself a drop. So the edge of the area where his knees would be, he puts on something there material. When sometimes there is in front of him higher ground, he needs to lift himself up, so he needs to use his feet also, his thighs. Most of the time when he's walking, they are hanging in the air, these materials. They don't touch the ground. What's the halacha? He cannot go out with these things on his feet. The pieces of the chair and his hands, the pieces for his hands are fine. But the pieces for his feet, since most of the time he's not using it, they're just hanging there. We're concerned that they will fall off his feet. Carry it. He can't walk without them. They become his shoes. Like his shoes, just like a person has shoes. He needs the shoes to walk properly with. So too, these supports that he has, the chair and the supports for his hands, these are like his shoes.
We have Shabbos, a guy here.
Entire body is leaning on it.
We have Shabbos, a guy here. He had a polio in Israel. And he came in with a scooter to the shul. I asked him how. He said, in Israel they have debate. Some against this, some, but this is his leg. If not, when I go to shul.
I'm not bucky. This you have to know how these machines are made. It has a hechsher and what it is, Tonight I'm not going to discuss.
On electric.
If it's clearly electric, there's no heter for it. If it's
Some
made,
Rabbanim
maybe
give
it's made in some special manner.
Maybe it's a batteria.
Maybe, I don't know.
Maybe there's some ways how they make these things, like they tried to make recently. There was some discussion about the kosher switch. There is a mach in Eretz Yisrael called.
Yeah.
There's a few mechanis. There's a guy that believe Yitzchak. There's also there's a guy Rosen has one. This guy Rosen. Right. These are the two big ones, Rosen and Halper. And Halper is actually a Chabad Chassid, the Yitzchak Halper. The guy Rosen, and they have different mechanis to produce different things for hospitals and for people that need it.
With Elef Shabbos elevators.
Yeah, special things that can be used. So this you have to look. Person has to look into it. If it's a regular scooter, going to shul doesn't permit chilul Shabbos.
What about a non-motorized?
Person can't go to shul in a car on Shabbos. Say, I'm not going to get to shul if I don't drive, right? You can go with the electric scooter.
Something. You cannot walk.
You can't go electric.
Better stay home.
He has no heter. We'll see tonight that tater for such a person. Except if it's made in special ways. You have to be a big mumcha how to make these machines in ways that al pi halacha would be okay. Again, they wouldn't be used l'chatchila, but for choila and different things. Now, tonight we're going to discuss the old standard methods: wheelchairs, crutches, and canes. This old standard thing. Yeah, the wheelchair wasn't around yet, but the other things. Now, you see, we're very machmer with these halachas. It has to have the status. The klal is it has to have the status like your shoe. If this is something that you're using the whole time to walk and you can't get around without it, then we give it the status of a shoe. But like the pieces over here that are on his feet, on his thighs, which he doesn't really use too often, only once in a while, means until he comes to that high ground, he doesn't need it. It's not shoes. So you can't wear that. What about a stick? You have someone a cane, who can't walk without a stick. V'chein chiger, she'eini yachol leilakal. As well, a chiger.
Some of them is only to help you to walk. Some of them you cannot walk without it.
Very negeya, very negeya.
Crutches, right? Like crutches.
I'm telling you that we're going to hear tonight chumras. We're going to try to discuss how we can, as much as we can do. But this is what's all the paskim across the board. Alright, this is comes out from Chazal. We're very machar with these dinim. Chein chiger, but we'll see what we could do in Mitzvah Shem soon. Shein yachol leilach klal b'lei makel. A chiger, someone is crippled, and he cannot walk without a stick at all. Cane. Mutter lots of feeling in a kashalei. You're allowed to walk around with your cane in your hand. You're carrying your cane. You're allowed to walk because that's his shoe. He's not allowed to lift it up and walk with it. He has to be using it the whole time. Since he can't walk with it at all, means in his house. If that person in the house cannot walk around without holding on to the chair, to the table, to something to help him go walk around, then this is considered his shoe. Just like people wear shoes, he needs to wear a shoe.
It says you know klal. Klal it means he cannot even walk one step.
We're very strict with this. Yeah.
I don't understand how that allows you to do the hoitzah.
It's not hitzah. This is
his
shoe.
leg.
This is his leg.
You walk with your legs. This is his legs.
This the side of his din is based. I'll use another copy. The side of his din is based on the fact that you're allowed to walk around with a shoe on Shabbos.
Yeah, but you're not allowed to carry your shoe on Shabbos.
That's the chiddush over here.
That's the chiddush.
In your hand, it's in your hand. It's not attached to you.
Right.
But
you're
it's
allowed
considered.
to walk with a shoe because it's on your foot and you're not carrying it. Here we're saying it's your shoe.
For this person, this is where his shoe is.
You're not the chash is you're not going to take off your shoe Shabbos and start walking without it. The guy cannot walk without his cane. The cane became his shoe.
Right. I can't walk. He can't.
You're not. What the chash? You're going to take off your shoes and start walking and carry it. Right?
No, that's not what I'm saying.
That's why you allow Shabbos.
He is doing hoitzah, right? Why is it allowed? Because it's his shoe.
Right.
But he's not wearing the cane. What's the difference if it's his shoe? Maybe it's his handkerchief. Are you allowed to carry your handkerchief?
As long as we're not worried, as long as we're not worried, you're gonna carry it.
Of course he's carrying it. That's what he's doing.
No, but he's not carrying it in the air.
So that's the word.
Yeah.
It's not because it's his shoe. It's because it's not a real hoitzah.
No, it's not a thought.
That's the word.
But that's the shoe. It's based on the head of a shoe.
You're saying
Shoe a whole time you're using your shoe when you're walking. You're walking constantly with your shoe.
It's meant for to walk.
It's meant to walk.
Yeah, so
Look. Let's read it for that. Im efshel, last line. Im efshel leilach ksas b'makel. He can walk a few steps without a makel. Eini noidel hachsich es atzmei. Shiyuchel lechet betuv yoiser v'liyipel. That's problematic.
Different, yeah.
If you can walk a little bit, you're just using it as extra support. You shouldn't fall. There's a difference between, we have to make the clarity between not falling and walking. Mm-hmm. Not falling means I'm just trying to prevent myself from falling, but I could walk. Just want to make sure I don't fall. To make sure you don't fall, that doesn't mean it's your shoe. That's how it's all. You're carrying something to prevent you from falling. However, if you're carrying it because you can't walk without it, and this is your means of walking, this is your shoe. Yeah. Your shoes are not here to prevent you from falling. Your shoes are to help you to walk. But if someone cannot, if someone's just using it as preventative, that's not enough.
That's
a cripple. An elderly person that goes in his house, he walks on without a stick. But when he goes in the street, he's concerned he might slip and fall. He rests upon the cane because he's weak. Also, lots of the baby Shabbos.
Wow. That's so
Very strict. Afilu mozakin kol kach shemenanei gufay. He shakes. He's concerned he might fall. Still in all, the fact of the matter is he's able to walk. He's concerned that he might fall, but he can walk. Our child is not whether he could walk or not. He could walk. The cane is there to prevent him from falling. That's not considered that's considered a haitzah.
That's tough.
Look inside the parentheses. Shekiven shohoylech bebeis b'makel. Since he in his house he walks around without a cane. In kanein tzarech zela makel sheyivs yismachol kol gufay. You don't really need this cane to lean on it with your whole body. Kol gufay. V'chol v'chasei. 2 points. In order to be matter a cane, you need to be using your entire body has to be leaning on it. It's not just here like, I have a cane. He's actually leaning on it. He's supported by the cane. This is allowing him to walk. Kol gufay, seimech kol gufay. Another thing, kol alichasi, the entire time. Not just for part of the time. The entire walk that he's walking from his house to the shul, kol halichase, it has to be kol gufay nismechala. His entire strength is on the cane, and the entire time. Over here in this case, since he goes in his house without the cane, he's not being soymech his whole body on it the entire time. Only he uses it to support himself be'es at those moments that he's concerned he's going to fall. The fifth line. It's like a burden. You're carrying something for to aid you. You cannot compare that to shoes, which your body is leaning entirely on your shoes the entire time that you're walking. Even if they're not considered a minnow when it comes to Yom Kippur or chalitza purpose, like we spoke last week, like a wood shoe which is not covered with leather, still in all, if you're using it as a shoe, it's mutter in Shabbos to walk around with it. Because in Shabbos, we're not concerned here whether it's considered the status of a minnow, a shoe, when it comes to Yom Kippur or chalitza. We have only one thing concerned. Is this how you walk? If this is your shoe and you're walking with it, then it's considered a shoe for Shabbos, you're allowed to walk.
I got a question.
Let's just do 4 more lines. We'll take all the shilas. So to a sick person who got up, he's getting better, recuperating. If he can go a little bit without the cane, also let us buy. This is going to come out even more chamer. A blind person shouldn't go out with a cane. He can walk without it. The blind person can walk. He can't walk. He has feet.
Without the cane?
His feet work 100% fine.
He doesn't know obstacles.
His feet are 100% fine. The problem with the summa is that he might bump into something.
Right.
Or get run over by something.
But might bump into something is not part of your walking. When it comes to Haitzah and Shabbos, we have to determine one thing. Not how much your need is, not how much the need is, but we have to concern
I don't know.
how much.
That's more needed than a cane, I think.
Yeah.
Suma's makel is more needed than a cane.
What is it? A blind man doesn't need it to walk, but he needs it to see.
Exactly.
So you're saying
To feel, you mean? To
it's
feel.
Can't walk out with
I
him.
think it's more important.
He
than
can
a
have a
cane.
person help him in the
Doesn't
street.
make
A
sense.
person
Right,
can walk
right.
with him to shul. Maybe he can even have his dog.
It doesn't make
How he
sense.
can take his dog.
Doesn't make any
But as I told you, these are.
It's unbelievable.
I'll tell you
Chumrah
the
doesn't make
logic.
sense.
Unbelievable.
The logic of the halacha. There's logic to it, but it comes out. Pa'al Mamish very very
Listen,
strict.
listen, since we allow a cane, why? Because he wouldn't be able to walk in the Shusarav, right?
What does that mean? But he can't
It means-
physically walk.
Right. Fine. But what's the definition of this cane? Is it to allow him to physically walk or to allow him to get from point A to point B? If it's to allow him to get from point A to point B, then it doesn't matter how he does it. He needs that cane to get from point A to point B. Similarly, that the summa, he needs that thing to get point A to B. Either one of them can't get from A to B without it. So why is one more important than two?
They could get there, but
He can't get there. No, he couldn't get there.
Okay.
He cannot get there. Physically, he can get there, but we're talking about the
True, but
Because we're
just like
we're
I can't
allowing
take a
us
car on
to
Shabbos. I can't take a car on Shabbos if I can't physically get there. We can't. You can't get there. We have no option for you. We're sorry, but the Torah has some.
no, but when
You would take a person with
Shul,
him,
not a shul.
and what do elderly people do in this case? They have someone walk with them, help them to shul, and in this case, this is what you have to do. Have someone else helping them. We'll discuss soon wheelchairs, but
see, because really, it's we're saying it's only the Rabbanan, right? It's not the Raisa. If it came with
it's
the
not so
Raisa,
pashut. No. If
then it became a shoe.
there's two shilas here.
So the
First, you
cane
need to
became
create it
his
to be a
eye.
shoe.
So the stick for the summa is his eye. He's wearing his eye.
No, but it's
It's like a prostate. It's like a.
You don't wear things on your eyes.
It's like
You don't wear
prosthetic.
things.
right.
It's like his prosthetic eye.
Prosthetic.
No, prosthetic or prosthesis eye.
Prosthetic.
Prosthetic eye. That's what his stick is. For one, it's his shoe, and for the other, it's his prosthetic eye.
His eye. Yeah. So what's the difference between a shoe and an eye?
Let me ask you then, what happens if someone can't get, with all these methods, he can't get to shul, only with a car? Let's just talk practically.
Right.
The only way he can get from point A to
Can't
point B is
do
with a
it.
car.
Can't do
Why
it.
not? Why not? The only way he can get from point A to point B is a car.
Because it's a mitzvah.
At the end of the day, we
it's a
have to-
mitzvah above Aveda.
This is a mitzvah of Aveda. We have
No,
to
this
fit
is a
everything to
mitzvah
the
above
Gidrei.
Derabanan. Derabanan, which we're allowing.
No. Here, Al Tareb said, Harei Kemasri.
You said this. You said a cane is not carrying. You're saying it's not carrying.
The shoes.
Right.
If the
So,
cane,
I mean, whatever that means.
no, we have a shaila. You have always to deal with the Raisa and the Rabbanan. Over here, in order for it to deal with the Raisa shaila, you have to make it as minnow. You have to make it a shoe. Otherwise, it's the Raisa problematic. The Raisa problematic. He's carrying. He's carrying something to help
Oh, I know
himself.
what it is, because a blind man can still walk in the dark.
That's what he said.
He can still walk
Exactly.
in the dark, he just don't know where he's going.
But he can't. See, that's the
He
point.
can the Suma can physically walk. He's just scared he's gonna bump into something.
So what's the problem?
I can't
You
compare
know,
that to
This
his
is
shoe.
because he can walk without a shoe to the shul.
No.
A person can walk to shul
No,
barefoot. One second. And you, yeah, we're saying here it's because it's his shoe. What are you're
Okay,
saying?
he really meant it's his foot.
No. It's his shoe.
He meant it's his foot, right?
So the,
No,
so the stick
it's
for the blind
Manolim.
man is his eye. If you want to talk, what's the word I'm looking for? In a mushal,
You
right?
got a blind?
If you want to talk, like on a mushal, so stick also for a
But you
blind
don't
man.
need
is a
your
mushal.
eye to walk the shul, you need your foot to walk the shul. You don't need your eye to walk the shul.
So
Yeah,
dog
but
is
you can
not
hold your
muktzah?
hand.
To walk with the dogs.
Nobody can carry you though.
Listen, look, cover the shoe.
Yeah,
The shoe.
it's like
The dog, you don't have to touch the dog. But the dog, the
What?
child, how you carry the leash? If you have to, if the dog pulls the leash, you're not pulling it. The Maisa,
Blind
by
dog
shoes,
is not a leash,
this
it's
is the definition. When it comes to a shoe, you're leaning on the shoe the entire time that you're walking. Your whole body's leaning on it the entire time. When a blind person is walking with it, he's not leaning on the thing the entire time.
Right.
It's there to feel something. He's not leaning on it the whole time. Yeah, a person can walk barefoot.
It's more of a merger.
It's there for things which we feel are extremely important, but still in all, in the laws of Shabbos, we cannot compare this to a shoe. A shoe, your whole body is leaning on the shoe. When the older person who could walk in his house without the cane, and now he's walking on the street because he's concerned that he might fall, maybe he will fall, but it's not every minute he doesn't need the cane every minute.
And you can't argue against.
He doesn't need the cane any minute.
It was already argued out. This is an exception.
There's nothing we could do. This is the
I have a
halacha.
question though.
Ve'ein tzarech loimer a second, chashuvim, shenoigim leil makal chashuv yadam. For sure, those chashuv yidden that like to go with a cane, that's for sure, shasul matzah b'Shabbos. But people beyond if it's not, it's also lots of spite.
even though it's a tash.
You can't make something a tasha that you're holding in your hand.
What if they couldn't get the shul and then they could use it, right?
Well, the shaila of udin dechoil actually. There's another shaila about these things. It's hard to understand also about the zilus of like. If you're carrying something like that, it's like something in the week that you walk around with your stick.
Yeah, but you're not walking any more during the week than you are on Shabbos.
I don't know what the answer is.
So the Alter Rebbe didn't speak anything about wheelchair that we have today.
No, it wasn't around after the
I wanna
time.
ask-
No?
Can I ask a question?
Tell us.
Sure.
Tell us. Why would
These days, they have these things, where when people break
The
their
way we
legs,
have now.
okay,
metal?
they wheel into
Why not a
shul.
wooden roof?
One, the broken leg is on a cart, and the other hand has a crutch, okay? Now, they're gonna say ordinarily I would have two crutches, right? And so therefore the cart is in place of one crutch, it's a valid shoe. But the truth is, they can walk without the other crutch. If they have a cart on their foot, they can hobble along with the other foot.
What is that card? I see that card around. What is that? That's
It's
the
a
new.
stupid thing, I hate
It's not.
it.
It's not. The,
They
instead of
endanger other
crutches.
people with that thing.
Instead of crutches.
Watch out, don't.
Or like four wheels, and you put your foot down.
Don't come
I
here
see them
and-
wearing. What is
Your
that?
half leg is
Yeah.
bent,
What
and
is
this,
that?
Your body not supposed to have so much strength on the leg.
Right.
So just to
Exactly.
move the strength from the body of the leg,
Right.
they put it on
So
the
why don't
body.
they? They don't want to
weight,
use.
it's
It's
the
better than
weight.
crutches.
Yes.
Once you have crutches, you still have
It's
the
hard,
body
it's
weight
hard,
on
it
the leg.
hurts.
The heaviness.
No, it's just, it hurts, also, it hurts.
Yeah, but doesn't the
The
person's
crutches
knee?
hurt, this thing is a machaya, it goes.
What foot? The foot that's
Broken.
broken.
The
You put on
broken
that.
foot,
Right.
you don't want to put any pressure on it.
Exactly.
So you wheel it.
You will it.
In other words, when you put the knee and the thigh, take
Shabbos.
all the weight.
Nothing.
Shabbos. This is so. If he can't get to shul without it, if he can't
Why,
move,
yeah,
if
like
he
a
can't
cane.
move without it,
It's a cane.
then it'll be his minnow. But if he could move without it, he can't move with one foot. So
Right.
if he's his foot
I
is
see-
broken,
I
he
see-
can't
I
use
see
his
him,
foot,
I see him
then he
taking
could
the
use
Shabbos.
it. Then he could use
But
it in
there's air
Shabbos.
over here, but
L'chora,
He's using a crutch too.
I don't know if you can use both.
That's the thing.
If you need both, you can use
have
both.
handlebars and brakes.
No, I'm not talking about something you sit on.
It's
No, what they
technical.
do is,
I'm not talking about something you sit on.
he has crutch in one hand and he has a wheel like
Yeah,
this.
but today they don't have
If
that.
he needs both, he needs both. But if he doesn't
No
need both,
clutch for
then
the
it's
second
extra.
hand. You put both hands on that and you go like a bicycle.
So the same shaila is
Got a
answered
break
before
now.
we get to
Hand break.
wheelchairs.
We're talking
The
about.
same
Yeah.
thing has been a geya. The same thing has been a geya crutches. A person needs to know if he can walk without the crutches on. If he cannot walk around without the crutches, then he could take the crutches to shul. One crutch or two, whatever he needs, and that he can't move without it. We're very strict with these dinim. You should know the Taz in Shulchan Aruch, the Taz on the big poskim, held that when there's ice outside, then an older person would be allowed to go with a cave. You would think this makes
Smart
sense.
then.
This makes sense. We would paskin like him. No, we don't paskin like the Taz. We don't paskin like across the board. The Shulchan Aruch Harav, the Mishabura. We don't paskin like the Taz. The Alter Rebbe here, over here on this page that we have, has a whole long a long footnote, tilpul, not that long, but he has here 10 lines where he explains that there's a lot of issues with the Taz. But one of the shilas I'll bring up with the Taz is that he says that, again, the problem with the ice is you're worried you're going to fall, but you could walk. Just worried you're going to fall. We're not saying it's not a real shash. It's a real shash, the person's going to fall.
Mishmartem
But the-
Avstotachem. What are you?
I didn't tell you to leave the house. I didn't tell you to
I
leave the
go to
house.
shul. It's ice outside. I'm afraid.
I didn't tell you to leave. Not mechuyev to go to shul.
I want to hear Sefer Torah.
Not mechuyev to go to shul. Have someone help you. Have someone aid you. The Taz, listen to this.
Well,
The
wouldn't it
Taz,
depend?
another problem is the ice is not all the time. It's not necessarily, in the blizzard, you could say, from the doorstep to shul, there was mamash a blizzard. But sometimes it's ice, it's a patch of ice. So until the patch of the ice, you're really just carrying it with you. Because you're not really needing it then. So it's just a cane, you hold it over there, you touch the ground a little bit, but you're not really leaning on it. Until you get to the parts where you're scared, and then you're leaning. So that's another issue with the Taz Hashita. Simple as that. You're chashav, they'll bring him into your house. Or you have someone else walk with you to shul. You ask someone to help you walk with your shul. You go on the street, you say, could you help me walk with your shul? What's wrong? Abbas Yisrael. You're still at
You're not allowed to ski on Shabbos.
it is probably better the person should walk with a physical person to shul than with the cane. He should have a physical person helping him and aiding him.
Bigger help.
A bigger help. The person will be much better
Why
for
not?
him. There was a story.
Can
They
you
know you to
attach
be
an
hood.
ice pick to the end of this game? In case it gets icy, you go like this with your cane.
According to the Taz.
The night of Yehuda, there was a kehila. There was some argument with their rav. So the kehila, there were certain people unhappy with the rav, and they kept writing to the Rabbi Yehuda different lashon hara, but like how the rav paskin this way and this they think it was wrong, and it was a kula, it was a chumrah.
Those were from Machloekes in those days.
Yeah, it was from Machlekesen. It was the good old Machlekesen. Machlekes is very
I'm saying,
traditional.
But today it's petty things. Then they have
People
to-
think
it wasn't
Machlekes
being-
Chedushim. We've been having this since Moshe Rabbeinu's times. This is a very traditional Jewish thing.
He raised a good point, snowshoes. Why can't you ski with snowshoes on our job? That's a good point. What's the issue?
No one skis in snowshoes. Funny.
You might be able to walk with
snowshoes.
you might be able to walk with skis to shoe. I'm not sure. If you're walking on it the entire time and you're using it like a shoe, maybe you could. Don't rely on me for this psak, but I don't. Based on what we're
So we're
learning,
gonna see a guy in a
you're
black
using
jacket
it every
and a
minute.
bucket, cross-country skiing on Shabbos.
Can you imagine an old
No,
man who can't walk?
if we're living like say in the Alps, and the only way you can get to shul is by skiing. So,
Maybe you could, yeah.
so not forget about shul. You
Yeah,
don't have to go to shul. But if you're living in the Alps, and
Oh,
that's
sure.
See how we're doing?
So my setup, I say, you know, to be Yehuda was this Kehila was always writing about the Rav Wolf. They kept writing to the Kehila. He did this with the mikvah, and they were upset. And the Noidi Yehuda kept on trying to calm him down, explain to him, I don't believe the Rav would say such a thing, and he did such a thing, and he was trying to work things out. So finally, one of the people, the Chashav Yidin, was very upset. He went out with his cane. It was snow and ice out. He went out with his cane on Shabbos, and the Rav told him that it's Asr. So he was very upset. The Rav should tell me that my cane is Asr and everything. So he wrote to the Noidi Yehuda. So this is following a few tshuvas in Noidi Yehuda, one right after the other, dealing with this Kehila. So this is like one of the tshuvas there. So the Noidi Yehuda writes to him, and he said that the Rav called me Mechal Shabbos. How dare he call me Mechal Shabbos? Rabani Wolf called me Mechal Shabbos. So he wrote that it's for sure Asr. You know, we don't paskin like the Taz, like we said. We don't paskin like the Taz. Even when there's ice, you can't go out unless every minute you're using it. However, even though we don't paskin like the Taz, I can't believe that your Rav would call you Mechal Shabbos. You follow the Taz, you had a very big poisik to be so Mechal. Allah is not like the Taz, but someone went like the Taz, you can't go tell him. Taz is in Shulchan Aruch, one of the foremost poskim in Shulchan Aruch, which a lot of times we do paskin like him. You weren't like the Taz. Okay, it's us. We don't pass.
Listen, in Tazville, they did pass like the Taz.
What is he
The
basing
Taz.
his
Well,
ruling on?
In the
it's hard to
town,
understand.
When you say we don't pass
Taztown, they did.
Across all segments
Oh,
of
Tasmania,
Yiddishkeit.
very good.
Mishabrura, the Shulchan Aruch Harav.
Well, apparently
Taztonville.
carefully you use it. Don't sell any group.
If you have a group, 100%. If you have a group that has a minig that they follow the Taz, they come from the city of the Taz, or whatever. They always their minig with their mekel kol hakavod. If all the kehilas are machmer, and someone comes up and says, "I want to be made because of the Taz," you don't have that right. If you have your kehila to be soymech 100%, Sfaradim that go like the mechaber, Shulchan Aruch, the Ashkenazim go like the Ramah. Each one is doing like the halacha. Everyone follows their poisik. If
By the
their
way, he's
poisik,
thinking about skis. He's from Italy, so his father's from Italy, so you know about skiing.
now what's about wheelchairs?
That's
You
really
have
what
an
it all-
electric one in Boca Raton, I saw on the show. And it has a special key, and it says that this is a random key that's a Shabbos wheeled vehicle.
What's the name of that?
That's what they
Robogaton? Where?
In
Boca Raton.
Century Village.
Robogaton.
That the guy
You
is
wouldn't know
using,
that. Rich
and it
people
says
out there. You wouldn't know that.
Shabbos, this is the
This my uncle.
Shabbos wheelchair. I'm not kidding.
Like that elevators, Shabbos elevators.
And the thing is that when you turn the key, it doesn't do anything because it's a random. It's a random. You know. I'm just saying.
You have to, in order to do these things, you have to know two things: the paskini shilas. You have to be someone that really understands technology well.
Yeah.
You also have to understand Hilchas Shabbos very well. So, not just the details, but the klolim, the general rules of how grama work and psik reisha and davar shein miskavin and koyach koyche. A lot of these type of rules, you have to have them very down pat, clear, and then you have to know the mitzvahs. So if a rav is missing either one or the other, you can't pass for the
What was
shabbos.
he talking about?
It's about the issue of the microphone. The Rebbe wrote about certain rabbanim that were matting the microphone in the early years. So he's using the microphone in shul. The Rebbe said that in order to pass for the shaila, you need to know how the
Mitzvahs.
microphone works, the
Work,
mitzvahs, and the halacha very well.
Also boats.
And over here, the Rebbe was usually very a nivastik, but here the Rebbe was very clear cut. He said, I know
Electrical
both
degree.
fields.
I'm an electrical engineer.
I know both fields, and I'm telling you clearly, there's no shaila. It's based on it, and those rabbanim that were matter it. There was some big. It was not explained to them. They did not know themselves how the thing works. Someone came over to them and told them, "This is how the microphone works." So kach v'kach v'kach. He said they didn't explain to them properly. Similar thing came out when it came to whether someone could be yoitza. Could you be yoitza kriya some Megillah, let's say, through the microphone or through the radio? So the Rebbe also held very strongly that it's not the same voice. It's not the coil of the voice of the verse. It sounds exactly the same, but it's a recording basically.
Yeah, right.
It's a repeat. It's the sound of the person is translated into. I don't understand these things, but it's translated into whatever the waves that are going over the telephone wires.
When it's a live
And then it
microphone,
replays it by the person hearing it. So
Not
you're
by
not
live.
actually hearing the physical coil. So anything
Not a live
when it
mic.
comes to saying amen, it's okay to hear from microphone. Because amen, you don't need to actually hear the person saying the bracha.
like the Gemara says.
Right. You need to know timing. When it comes to answering amen,
But
it's important thing the timing to know now is the bracha. There was a big shul in Alexandria, Egypt,
to be a
a
flag.
huge shul, and they couldn't hear from one and the other, and they waved the flag when to answer amen. And that's fine because there is no chiyuv to hear if I heard also Baruch Hu. If I hear the person in front of me answering Baruch Hu, even though I didn't hear Baruch Hu, I can also answer Baruch Hu. So I come to shul, some people call me running into shul, and there's a guy like near the front door, and he's saying Baruch Hu, and he's watching the next guy, and you hear, it's all, you could say Baruch Hu too, even though you didn't hear the chazan saying Baruch Hu. So when it comes to those in Yanim, it's fine, but when it comes to anything that the Torah requires a physical voice to be heard, then a person can't, a recording is not the physical voice. It's not
You
gonna,
hear somebody say
even a
Baruch
live
Hu,
recording, even though we know 100% the person is reading the Megillah right now, or for that matter, he's saying, please give a get to my wife, that's like a serious shaila, where the person actually, the husband has to actually say, we know he's saying it, but halachically, we need to hear his voice. So until we hear his voice, we're stuck. That's the most place can
But the
want.
question is,
Some place can want it to held different.
if you heard someone making Baruch Hu, but you don't know if it's an apple, it's an orange, you're allowed to answer amen? You don't know what it is. Megillah, I know it's a Megillah. That's it. It's only
If you don't know what the
Not.
bracha is, he's
How
saying.
could
I know the bracha, but there are 10 different
The
things.
answer,
So
amen, you don't know what a bracha
you're
is?
How could
It's
you?
true.
How could you?
I walk in
Match,
from
I don't remember. It could be in that.
You don't answer amen?
What's the difference
Oh,
between
you know the words, you just don't know what type of eight.
Oh, yeah, that you could
Of
say
course you
amen,
can.
yeah.
What's the difference?
What's
So what happens, you don't know what bracha
it
it is, you
Right,
remember.
right. That's what he meant, you don't know what bracha
No,
is.
that
the
you
guy
right.
eating oranges to apple.
Yes is right. Yeah, for sure you can answer amen. in
You
that
hear
case.
bracha.
Yeah, you hear bracha. The shaila is if you don't know what bracha is being said at all, could you answer? Now,
So you didn't
What
go to
about
the
wheelchair?
Yeah, right.
okay?
Isn't it?
Which,
So now, there are some poskim,
Like a
the
shoe.
poskim don't meet each other over here in this issue, because some poskim are matter and some poskim are, I wouldn't say machmer, but I would say the word machmer. They don't aser, but they're machmer. They're not clear on it. Now, Moshe Feinstein, for example, says he sees it's like the same thing, like a person can use a cane. If you can go with a cane, this is how the person goes out. We're talking about a non-electrical wheelchair, or you're not using the electrical components. The person's wheeling it with their hands. So that's the way they walk. Their whole body is walking with that the entire time. This is like mamish like a cane, which you can't walk without.
They may be paralyzed.
And Moshe Feinstein feels it's even better than a cane. It's mamish like on
He's
your
not
body.
carrying it, exactly.
On your body, it's
It's a malbish.
yeah.
He pushes it himself.
Oh, yeah. We'll get to someone else wheeling.
They're both.
They're different Ateirim. But some are wheeling himself. This is Ramoshe's pshitis, and other poskim also come with this, but they don't see chelik. However, some other big Gedolah poskim brought up a shaila, a suffix about this, whether or not you can make this comparison to the cane, and they're like mesupik, and they're not ready to be makel. Now the other poskim that are makel didn't see these poskim, so they weren't talking to each other. So we have a bunch of different shuvas. So it would be nice to see after those poskim brought up different questions, those poskim brought shaylas, to see those that were makel saw this question and addressed it. But you don't see that in this sugya. You see the rabbanim that are makel and the rabbanim that want to be machmir, or at least they're nervous and therefore they always try to offer other options. So to understand that, let's take the pashtus that galuk is that it's a shoe. That's the pashtus galuk. We compare it to the din of kiteya, the din of the amputee, and of the that we read over here that can go with a cane. And this is what we learn. It's a mishnah in Masechah Shabbos. It's clear halacha. And pashtus, you're allowed to go out with the person's allowed to be wheel himself in a wheelchair. However, came along Reb Tzvi Pesach Frank, who was the Rav in Yerushalayim 100 years ago. Exactly 100 years ago, the Rav in Yerushalayim is a very big Pesach, and he has many, many Sfarim, and they're called his Yeshuvas are called the Har Tzvi, and he has other Sfarim on Moyadim called Mikroi Kodesh, very logical Sfarim with strong seichel. So Lamaisa, Reb Tzvi Pesach Frank saw, I think this comes from like a haskama that he wrote on someone's sefer, and on this sefer that someone wrote, he saw that person wanted to be matter the wheelchair based on this sack, and he writes that I'm not clear on it, and he explains what his suffix is. Let's take a look over here. Shuvas Har Tzvi Simin Kuf Ayin. Al Dvar Shaila, regarding the question Misha Nikte Raglo Min Hashoik Olamayla, someone who has no feet, he's sitting in a wheelchair, he moves the wheels. And you are and there's you're questioning whether or not a person can go out. Before we go into it, he discusses also, can someone else push him? The din of someone else pushing him is like this. Halacha is, the klal is in Shabbos, it's mutter to do a shvus, the shvus, the makam mitzvah, makam tzarech, gadol. Means like this. If something, halachically, if something is two d'rabbanans, something is asim d'rabbanan, you're not allowed to do it. It's asim d'rabbanan, chachal sal asim. But what happens if it's two d'rabbanans? But it's still asur. It's rabbinically prohibited twice. It's rabbinically prohibited, but it's two d'rabbanans. You can make it into that rabbinically prohibited because of based on two premises. It won't be mutter until you also have a tzorich, a great need, or a mitzvah. If there's a great need or a mitzvah to be done, that won't matter. It's called a shvus to shvus, two d'rabbanans, and it's a mitzvah. Let's say, for example, telling a guy to do something on Shabbos is an issa midrabanan. Asking a guy to do a malacha for you. So if the guy is going to do a malacha deraisa, you have a problem because you're asking to do a malacha deraisa. So it's not a shvus to shvus. When you will if you ask the guy to do a derabanan for you, do a issa derabanan, so then it's called a shvus to shvus. Telling the guy to do something to you is only asim derabanan. It's one shvus. And what the guy is actually doing, you're telling him to do also something which is only a malacha midrabanan. It's called a shvus to shvus. So that will be permitted if there was a tzorich mitzvah. If there was a tzorich mitzvah or a tzorich gadol, or there was a great need, or for a choyle. For these purposes, we would allow you to do a shvus to shvus.
You open air conditioning, you can tell her?
Heating and air conditioning is a different klal. Vir, Chazal, or Mekel on their own rule. Let's talk about heating. Air conditioning wasn't around in the times of Chazal. But when it came to heat, we consider everyone like people get really sick without heat. Therefore, one is allowed to instruct the guy to put on the fire. They used to have Shabbos guys to put on the fire and bring in wood and keep on bringing in firewood. They used to go around and deliver firewood to put in the firewood. You're allowed to tell them to go put in more firewood on Shabbos, even though it's a malacha deraisa.
You're allowed to?
Yeah.
Or you have to tell them it's cold here?
No. When it comes to heat, Chazal or Mekel, that hakoil choyle meitzat, everyone's considered a choyle, and you're allowed to go tell a special kula, that you're allowed to kill a goy even though it's malacha deraisa. The shaila is what happens the opposite. The Pasuk discusses what happens if it's very hot and I want it to cool down. So then we also got to look the opposite effect. If the air conditioner is just there for comfort, you don't have the heter. But if it's really hot and people can get sick from this, you have an older person or child in the house, or it's just very, very hot and a person can chalish or whatever it is, then we can also ask a guy to do the opposite. We'll learn out from what was then to them. Now, but in general, those are a good kasha, those are yoitzim in a klal. But b'derech klal has to be shvus to shvus, b'makim mitzvah, or b'makim tzoyach gadol, b'makim chayli. Then it's mutter. So now, if we're going to say that you're not allowed to wheel the wheelchair in Shabbos, let's talk it out outside. Basically, Ritzi Pesach Frank brings up the concept that you cannot compare going in a wheelchair to using your cane. Why? He's not sure. Going with a cane, you are yourself are walking. The person is walking. Just the cane helps him walk. But he's walking.
His leg.
He's walking.
His leg.
Over here, in the wheelchair, he's not walking. He's not walking anywhere. He's pushing the wheels and moving himself. He's not walking. When you're walking, you could say, it's like my shoe. I have shoes when I walk, and if someone's feet aren't working well, so he has a stick and that's a shoe. But his shoes are helping him walk, but over here he's not walking at all.
They are a little bit walking. Even though they are in a wheelchair, they're moving the foot. They do with the hand.
Sometimes they have stand.
No, it's someone who can't move his feet, right?
Then for sure he's not walking.
The only thing I have a problematic with this is that we learned to the din that not only is a cane mutter, but the Mishnah says that let's say someone who doesn't have feet at all, and he goes in a chair.
And only sometimes
he goes in a chair
when he's high, and
he uses his hands to move, and he puts some boards or something on his hands, strapped onto him where they shouldn't hurt his hands, his fists, and he pushes himself forward on this chair. So he's not using his feet. He's using his hands. So maybe we should compare the wheels, pushing the wheels, so the wheels like his hand. The wheels like those supports that are on his hands. So he's not the only Pesach that brought up the Minchas Yitzchak. Weiss was originally in Manchester, later on Rabbi Shalayim, also he was not happy with it. There was a bunch of Rabbanim, Moshe Sternbach Shlita, Shalayim, not comfortable with it. On the other hand, the Moshe Feinstein, who didn't bring up this kasha b'chalal, he lechatchila said it's good. It's better than a cane. He felt it's lechatchila good, and he wasn't the only one. There were other poskim that helped. It was mutter. So there is room for a Pesach, a Rav, to weigh in. Sack over here. I'm not going to weigh in, Yeah, think about it very, very carefully and know properly how to compare. The Tzvi Pesach Frank himself did not say he's going to answer it 100%. He just says, I'm not clear on it. L'maisa, what about if someone does not want to rely on this because of the shilas, doesn't want to use it with his hands, or a lot of times the people don't have the koyach to move with their hands. They're older people that anyways can't move it with their hands. So when a young person who never feet are paralyzed or cannot, or amputated, so he's able to. An older person, he can't push himself the wheel. It's very hard to move those wheels. It's a lot of weight. So therefore, we're gonna want to go the other option of having a goy push him in the street. So now we're gonna have to go back to understand the klolim shvos to shvos b'makom mitzvah.
Why is it only shvus to push the guy in the street?
Because it's really like he's pushing him, he's carrying. So it's really one shvos. He told the guy. So this is the two ways how the Rabbanim go about it.
If you're pushing a wheelchair, it's no different than kicking the can and it's a rabin.
It's halacha, yeah. So you're. It's l'chora, it's midiraisa, and l'chora the guy you're asking the guy to do deraisa. So it's not a shvus to shvus. 100% very good hard. Well, the Rabbanim, the poskim of today, have come out with two mahalchim how to be matter. Okay, let's finish up just with this word. L'maisa, the Rabbanim came out with two atayru. If you're dealing with a place which is not a Rishus Rabbah midiraisa, it's only a Carmel, it's only midrabanim, the area, the street, is only midrabanan, rabbinically considered Rosh Hashanah. It's not midaraisa. Beyond the scope of the shir to get into the different disputes about what's constitutes Rosh Hashanah. That's the basis why there's big machlekes and all the Erevin in Borough Park, in Williamsburg, in different places. Flatbush, why all these machlekes and it's based on what's constitutes a real Rosh Hashanah.
That would be great, a big hit on YouTube.
Yeah, in order to get that shir, you gotta have a helmet on.
Bulletproof.
Well, look, Rabbi Belsky's not here anymore, so
He was against it, right?
he was against it.
Yeah. So Lamaisa, there's more people, a lot of Yarshim. So Lamaisa, but let's say it's not a Rosh Hashanah. I'll tell you where it's not a Rosh Hashanah for sure. There are cities. Let's just go briefly over this. What's Rosh Hashanah? The machlekes over here.
Maybe we could do it next week.
Should do it next week.
Yeah.
Okay. So Lamaisa,
We'll share about it.
yeah. I don't know. It's a big sheer Erevin. It's a big thing.
Oh, okay.
I've had a different thing.
Don't trouble yourself.
What is number?
Don't trouble yourself.
Number by house? That's only
So you're thinking. Let's just go quickly. If it's not a real Rosh Hashanah midiraisa, so you have a shvus to shvus. You're telling the guy one shvus to carry in a Rosh Hashanah in a Carmelis, only two derabanans, and it's a tzorich mitzvah coming to shul. You can hear Kriyas HaTorah here.
You see it a lot of
Now, another heter is if the person himself in the wheelchair can walk a little bit. He could walk. Just he's not able to make it to shul. There's a thing called chai noise es atzmei. The Gemara says someone who's a living being, person carries himself. And if someone carries a person in the street on Shabbos, a person that can walk on his own, it's only Asa Midrabanan. The question is why? This is a Gemara, clear Gemara of Nassim says this.
Really carrying him.
Shaila is, what does this mean? There's a Toysis that discusses, is he aiding? Is it the fact that he's the lighter? What is it? Why is a Chayin Noisis Atzma Midrabanan? The Ma'isa Toysis says that it was not in the Mishkan, such a type of Haitzah, carrying a living person, living being. So therefore, it wasn't in the Mishkan.
It wasn't in the mission carrying a cigarette lighter.
So this is a discussion. It's beyond the scope to get into the whole din of Chaynes Atzma. But Lamaisa, if the person could walk by himself, at least he could walk somewhere by himself, then he has a status of Chay Noisis Atzmai. Carrying him is only Midrabanan. So even if it's a Rosh Hashanah Midiraisa, but for the guy to carry such a person, move the wheelchair, is Chay Noisis Atzmai, is Shvos to Shvos, but Makim Mitzvah. This is the Rabbanim came out. However,
you do see a lot of
first of all, you have to make sure, determine that the person can take a walk. Because he can't walk at all, then he's not a Chay Noisis
What
Atzmai.
if he can crawl?
According to most Poskim. Accepted version is someone cannot walk at all, then he's not considered Chay Noisis Atzmai, according to most Poskim. Also, the thing with a baby, by the way, same child with a baby. If the baby, Cotton could walk, he could pick up a foot and put the other foot down and walk steps. We'll say Chayin Satzim. But the other shaila is how about that's a male that he's pushing the person, but he's also pushing the wheelchair.
He went to bring one.
He's pushing the wheelchair. The wheelchair is not Chayin Satzim. So how we matter the wheelchair? The wheelchair that matter, most places can want to be matter. They say the wheelchair is bottle and secondary to the person sitting into him. Like his bed, like his chair. We don't look at the chair as a separate existence. The chair is secondary to the person. When you push the wheelchair, are you pushing a wheelchair? You're pushing a person. You're pushing a person. We look at the wheelchair as secondary. So therefore, the wheelchair you be potter according to most paiskim, and you're only chayiv for the person, and the person's only derabanan. So it's a shvos to shvos. So this would help you that even if it's a shayla mederaisa in the street, so shvos mederaisa, you would still can have the issue in certain cases of Chay Noisis Atzmai. So this is if you want to be machmir, like many poskim are machmir, that they don't feel comfortable allowing the person to push himself the wheelchair, or the person can't push the wheelchair himself. So if he can move himself, walk somewhat, then we will give him the status Chay Noisis Atzmai and we can matter.
But
Anyways, we
it has to
shall
be wet,
we
it
should
has
not
to
know of
be
all
in
these
time.
things, that everyone should be healthy,
Amen.
and those that not have Shabbat for Shleima Kroiva.
When I had my open heart surgery about a year and a half ago,
Wow.
I had 2 valves changed. So I was in Maimonides and they took me to Solomon Shepherd. For a week and a half, I did not walk. And then they taught me how to walk. Those stairs. They gave me wheelchair and they gave me walker. And the shoe, it's in the same floor.
Oh, him I don't
But I
know.
couldn't walk myself.
He's out.
So they told me take the wheelchair. I said no, I'll take the walker. With the walker I can walk. Wheelchair.
We have one guy died, the other guy went to get the 10th guy.
On the 7th floor. Huh? On the 7th floor.